Hello and welcome. In today's video, we're going to cover basic IP camera troubleshooting. So let's just jump right in here. The first thing to note is that most Pelco IP cameras have an IP address of 192.168.0.20 with the subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. The Grandi OnCam EVO360 has a default IP address of 192.168.0.200. Armed with the default IP information, the next step is to connect to the IP cameras. This can be done in several ways. One of them is to use either a PC and a crossover or straight through cable and connect directly to the IP camera. In this case, if your laptop uses an auto flipping port, a straight cable can be used and the laptop will automatically create a crossover connection to it. In the case that your laptop or PC does not have an auto flipping port, a crossover cable will be necessary. In either situation, the IP address on the laptop or PC will need to be switched to be in the same range as the default of the IP camera. In this case, that could be 192.168.0.15 as an example. The next step could be to use a switch or router and connect the cameras that we would like to change and then the PC or laptop to that switch or router. We'll still need to make sure that the PC is within the same range as our cameras. Before we actually connect our cameras, we can confirm our IP address information on the PC by going to Command Prompt. If it's not on the Start menu, you can type in search CMD and hit Enter. Once at the Command Prompt, type in ipconfig /all, and that will show us our IPv4 address. This address needs to be on the same scheme as the IP cameras. Once we've confirmed the IP address of the PC or laptop, in order to verify that connection, a ping can be done. Do this in Command Prompt by typing in ping space and then the IP address of the camera. If you hit enter and you see that it is not reachable, the likely suspects are going to be the cable or the IP address in the camera has already been assigned. If this is the case, a camera reset will need to be done. Please note that if the system this is being installed on has DHCP running, then configuring the IP address manually is not required. All Pelco IP cameras by default are set to DHCP. A quick way to tell if DHCP is enabled on the network is when we do an ipconfig /all, there will be a section that says whether DHCP is enabled. If this says yes, then there is no need to configure the cameras manually. Whether using DHCP or manually assigning IP addresses, if we're still unable to ping the cameras after this, we would want to make sure that there are no duplicate IPs currently being used. This is especially true in the case of manually assigning IP addresses. A quick way to test this would be to open Command Prompt, do a ping to the IP address that you would like to use. If this IP pings without the camera being connected, we know that the IP address is already in use. This can also be true even when using DHCP. If the cameras are configured before bringing them to site with IP addresses that are within the network's range, however, if DHCP is running on that network, we still want to ping those IP addresses first before placing those cameras on the network. If they do ping showing that the IP addresses are already used, then the camera IP addresses will need to be changed. With the IP addresses now set and confirmed, we can move on to logging into the camera via the browser. The default username is admin, all lowercase. The default password, admin, all lowercase. Once logged into the browser, we want to go to Settings and then to Network. Here at the network screen is where we'll make our IP address changes. As you can see from ours here, it has already been configured and we are not using DHCP. By default, DHCP is set to on. When we want to set manual IP address assignments, first we must turn off DHCP and then we can enter the appropriate IP address information in the fields below. In the case of the gateway address, this can be set to the IP address of the camera. If there is an actual router functioning as a gateway for the network, we recommend contacting the on-site IT personnel to obtain that IP address. With the camera now set with the correct network information, we can click Save and it will reboot. Please keep in mind this process can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes while it restarts. Also note that when the IP address is changed during configuration, since our laptop or PC is on a different scheme now, we will no longer be able to connect to it from here. Place the camera on the network it is to be installed on, and then it can be reached from the VMS system. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. And remember, at Pelco, we've got it all covered.